Hey there, John Morris here, johnmorrisonline.com. Welcome back to another episode of The John Morris Show. So this episode, this is going to be the first part of a 4-part tutorial series I'm going to be doing over the next few episodes. And in that tutorial series, what I'm going to be showing you how to do is, it's the exact process I used to get my first few freelance clients. And so I'm going to lay out that exact process for you. And the great thing about this particular process is it's very simple, and the kind of projects you're going to be delivering on are smaller, a lot easier, a lot simpler, but still very lucrative projects. So in this first episode, what we're going to get into is figuring out what sort of services you can offer. And it's all very problem based. So we're going to be solving very specific problems for people. So I'm going to show you how to figure out and find what those problems are, how to determine whether or not that particular problem has commercial viability. There's actually people willing to pay money to have it solved, and how much they're willing to pay. And then also how to figure out the solution to that problem so that you can deliver on these projects and solve these problems for people. And by the end of this, again, you'll have a solid, lucrative freelance idea where you can solve the problem, people are willing to pay for it, and you can then go about building the rest of your sales pages and so forth, knowing that you have something that is viable. So that's what we're going to get into in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to hop over and do the screencast thing so you'll be able to see everything that's going on. If you're listening to the audio version, I've been very specific about making sure that all of this makes sense, even if you're listening just to the audio. However, if you want to view all the screenshots and so forth, go to johnmorrisshow.com/320. That'll be the show notes page for this episode. I'm going to link up the YouTube video. I'm also going to link up the blog post that has the screenshots on it and everything for you. So for those of you listening on iTunes, Android, so forth, johnmorrisshow.com/320 if you want the visuals. All right, with that said, let's hop into the tutorial. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a Google AdWords account. Now, Google AdWords by far is the best out there. There are alternatives, but it's sort of the most useful and the one that doesn't require payment. Now, when you sign up for it, you will probably have to enter payment information, but you never have to run any ads. You never have to spend any money. But like I said, there are sort of free-ish alternatives like WordTracker, WordStream, and KeywordTool.io. You can just do a Google search for Keyword Tool and you'll find a whole bunch of them. The thing about these is they will let you search for free on their site without creating any account or anything like that. But the results they give you are just going to be really limited. They're going to show you like maybe the first 5, or maybe they won't show you the search volume data or something. They limit the data in some way, and then if you want the full data, you actually have to pay money for it. So again, that's why I recommend creating an AdWords account. Even though you do have to give payment information, you never have to run an ad, you never have to spend money, and so it actually is a true free option. And it's, in my opinion or my experience, it's more useful than a lot of the others that I've seen. So, but at the end of the day, what you need is a keyword search tool. You need something that you can search for keywords on, because that's going to be a big part of what we're doing here. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and create an AdWords account or whatever system you want to use. And then from there, we can get into actually doing some searches. So once we have our AdWords account, or we have a tool that we can use, in AdWords, you just go to Tools and then Keyword Planner. In your tool, you'll go to whatever it is where you can actually search for keywords. And what we're going to use are what I call urgent problem keyword modifiers. So that's sort of a long phrase, but an example of this would be a word like error. So you can add the word error to most any search, and you'll find a list of urgent problems for you to solve. So for example, if you go to your keyword tool and you type in the search term WordPress and then error. So error is the modifier. WordPress is sort of the main keyword. We add error to that. We type in WordPress error. And when you do that, what you should see is a list of different problems or errors that people are experiencing with WordPress. And so, for example, the very first one that you'll see if you do this search is error establishing a database connection, which inside the AdWords tool, has 22,200 searches per month, which is quite a bit. You'll also see something like 500 internal server error. You'll see some more generic stuff like WordPress error. You'll see, I think if we scroll down, you'll see something like WordPress 404 error, WordPress log file, WordPress connection error. So you're going to see sort of a list of different errors that are coming up on WordPress. Now, some of these are the same sort of problem that are searched in different ways. So you can kind of group those together as sort of the same problem and assess your search volume based off that. But if you look at these keywords for a second, or these keyword phrases for a second, in most cases, take the example of error establishing a database connection. This is someone whose website is down or their web page is down, 500 internal server error. They're searching this because their website is down. So they are probably frantically searching. They updated a plugin or they changed a theme or something, and suddenly their site is now broke. That is what we call an urgent problem. And these people will often pay very good money to get their sites back up. So what you're looking at here is really an endless source of potential freelance work. It's simple jobs that you can usually solve within an hour or two. If you've ever solved an error establishing a database connection in WordPress, it's usually something pretty simple. So it's simple jobs that you can usually solve within an hour or two. But because it's such an urgent problem, people are willing to spend a couple $100 to get this done per project. So if you do the math on that, you can see that you can start making some pretty good money from these small, easy projects. Now, as a side note, if you are a patron of mine, I've uploaded a full list of these urgent problem keyword modifiers over on Patreon in a PDF document. So the idea here is that the word error, adding error to a particular search, is just one example among many of these modifiers. So with this full list that I give you inside Patreon, there's more of these sort of modifiers to help you find every possible urgent problem that a particular problem might be having, so you can maximize this pool of potential freelance work from urgent problems. So if you want to download, again, if you're a patron of mine, you want to download that, you can head on over to Patreon. It's in the feed there. Otherwise, if you're not a patron, you can learn more about becoming one and getting access to this PDF along with all the other perks that are listed on that page. So you can go to johnmorrisonline.com/Patreon to learn exactly what all that is and how to get access and so forth. But again, once you've done this search, you now have this sort of pool of potential freelance services you could offer, problems you could solve. The next thing that you want to do then is you want to build a list of these urgent problems. So you need to decide what problems you want to solve. The thing to do is pick out at least 10 of these problems you find and write them down. And then once you've written them down, sort of sort them by search volume. For right now, you don't need to worry about whether or not you actually know how to solve the problem. We'll talk about how you can figure all that and handle all that out in a minute. For now, what you're looking at sort of is the commercial viability. That's what we want to assess. So again, and the other thing here is, you don't need to pick the top 10 by search volume. So you don't need to, because 500 internal server error has 60,500, well, that has to be number one on the list. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying look at these keywords that you find when you do the search and pick out the ones that you think you would want to work on. And then of those, take those and sort them by search volume. So you have not only a list, but you have a list sorted by search volume. You know what is the most sort of popular problem that people are looking for, and you have it sorted that way. Okay, so I'll just drag over. Your list might look something like this. It has urgent problems, WordPress error, and then there's a list of 500 internal server error, WordPress 404 error, WordPress error establishing a database connection, and so forth. So however you track that sort of stuff, just make a list of the ones that you think you want to work on. The next thing to do then is we want to assess the commercial intent on Upwork. So go to Upwork.com. If you don't have an Upwork account, I would say just create one. Again, sort of like the AdWords account. You may never have to use it. You may never have to do anything with it, but you want to be able to search over on Upwork, or it could be Freelancer or any site that you prefer that's a freelancing site where people are posting projects that they want to hire people to complete for them. And so once you're over there, then just plug in one of your search terms. Now, the thing to keep in mind is for most of your search terms, you won't be able to type them into Upwork exactly how they appear in Google. So for example, a search term like WordPress, error establishing a database connection, that whole phrase, if you put that into Upwork, you're probably not going to find anything because clients just don't, that's not sort of how they write their projects often. So you need to look for what are called broad matches. So an example of that would be something like WordPress database error. That's more likely to be something that someone searches for. And if you do that search over on Upwork, you'll find that there are 28 jobs already over there of people that come up as matches for that. And if you expand it even further and just do WordPress error, you get 258 jobs, and you can sort of filter through that list and see what sort of errors are in there that fit with what you're trying to do. So the big thing here is, we're not, it's not about finding a million jobs. 28 jobs is plenty. Matter of fact, we're simply seeing if there's any, if people are willing to pay at all for this particular thing. So if you find any, that's a good sign. Of course, the more the better, but any is a good sign. And then we're also looking at the budgets for these projects. So what are people willing to pay to get this problem solved? And if you look through the list that comes up when you do WordPress database error, that search on Upwork, you'll see a number of jobs for $200, $100. Yeah, some are down in the low area, $25. Some of them are hourly projects that are for a long period of time where people want you to do sort of an ongoing type setup. And you will also find some, though, that are up in the $500 range. So I see one that is as high as $566. I see one for $150, and on and on and on. So you're going to sort of range. I even see one as high as $1,500. So again, they're going to be sort of all over the place, but you sort of want to get a consensus. And I would say for this particular search that you're probably in the $100 to $300 range. It seems like most people are probably going to be willing to pay that. And even the people that are posting $25 or $50, oftentimes you could probably bump those people up to $100 or $200 once you explain what's all involved with what you're doing. So, and again, you're not necessarily going to bid on these jobs on Upwork. That's not even the point of this. The point of this is simply to assess the commercial viability of this problem being solved. And if you see someone who's willing to pay $200 or $300 to have it solved, and it's something simple like a database error connection, that's a really, really good sign. That's something easy for you to solve, and you can make good money doing that. So what you want to do is you want to go through and you want to do this for every search term that you wrote down in step number 3. So we wrote down at least 10, maybe even more. For each one of those, you want to go through Upwork, use the broad match like I described, and search, just sort of look for projects and what the budgets are and that sort of thing, and start to get a sense of what the commercial viability of each keyword is and which ones seem more viable than the others. And you have to use your intuition here a little bit, but if you just cram all of this data into your head, you're looking through all of this stuff, you'll start to get a gut feeling. And then the next step is you just need to pick one. So you can go through all of this and look for, maybe you come to like 3 or 4 that you want to do, but you want to pick one to start with. And I don't want you to overthink it or super analyze it. Just pick one and move on, because our overhead, the things that we need to do in order to set up a sales page and get traffic to that sales page and actually get people to hire us to do this, it doesn't take that much time or effort. It's not going to take us a bunch of time. So even if you pick one and it happens to be a dud, well, you didn't waste a ton of time. You can go back and pick one of the other ones and do it again. So just don't overthink it. The biggest thing I don't want you to do is get stuck here on picking one and thinking you have to pick the perfect one. You don't. Just pick one and move on, and we'll do the rest of what we need to do from there. All right, so once you've picked one, now the thing to do is we need to figure out the solution to this problem. And that's sort of the best part of all of this, is because pretty much every problem that's out there, you'll find already has a solution. It's already been solved. And there will be blog post after blog post or video after video showing you how to solve it. So, You don't even really need to figure it out on your own. And you also don't need to worry that all these solutions exist, because there are plenty of non-technical people who won't understand the solutions, or who simply just don't want to do it themselves and are more than happy to pay somebody else to take care of it for them. So the thing to do is just go to Google and search for the keyword term that you picked out. So again, for an example, if you go to Google and search for WordPress error establishing a database connection, what you will see is a list of posts that are showing you exactly how to solve this problem. Now, a quick side note here, you'll notice that none of these are videos. These are all blog posts. That's a really, really good sign for us for our strategy. So take note when you do a search like this and you don't have any YouTube videos that pop up, that's a good sign, and maybe a search term that you want to put a little star by, that this could be something that is good for us. But again, you're going to see a list of a bunch of different solutions to the problem. So you don't even have to figure it out on your own. All you have to do is go through these articles. And I would say go through the first 1 to 2 pages here on Google for the search term that you have, and just look through those articles. As you read through them, what you'll see is a lot of the articles say the same thing. They'll have sort of the same steps or the same advice, and you'll develop a consensus solution. That's sort of what you're after, is okay, pretty much all of these articles say to check these 4 things. So I'm going to have these 4 things on my checklist as the primary things I'm going to look at to solve this problem. And then, this one had this thing over here, so I'll put that down as a possible. If the first 4 don't work, it could be this and this and this. But that consensus solution, the reason it's the consensus solution and it's on every single one of these articles is because it's worked. And so that's a good indicator that you're going to be able to find your solution in those things that are repeated throughout all of these articles. And so, again, what you want to do ultimately is create a checklist out of this. You want to write down all of these things. You don't have to write down all of the details. Just write down each of these things, and then write down, put the links to the articles that you found all of this stuff in that document as well. So what you end up with is you have the answer, right? You have how to solve it. You have the checklist of steps to go through, but you also have the resources to go back to if you go through those steps and you're not getting it solved. You can read back through, or when you actually go to do it the first time and maybe you don't remember the article, you can just click back to the article. It'll walk you through it, and you can go through and solve that problem for somebody. And the catch-all of all of this is, because you're solving a problem like this, if you go through and you try everything you know how to do and you can't solve it, then you just go back to the client and say, hey, I've tried everything I know how to do and I can't solve it. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to solve this for you. And either give them their money back or never take it in the first place, whatever. But do right by them in that sense and say, I've tried everything and I can't figure it out. And you'll be fine in that sense. That's not going to happen very often. But when it does, you just, again, do right by him and you'll be fine, and you don't have to worry about it. All right. So now if you stop and you look back at all of this, you have some pretty important things done already here. If you've been walking along doing this as I've went through it, you have an urgent problem, and the fact that it's urgent is important. So you have an urgent problem. You have a problem that people want solved quickly, often because their site is down or a particular web page is down or something's broken. It's a problem that people are willing to pay money to get solved. We went on Upwork and actually checked that, and we see people are willing to pay money to have this problem solved. You have a checklist of things to go through to solve the problem, so you have the answer to be able to solve it, and you have a whole list of resources to back you up in case you run into sort of any issues as you go through this. So you have a problem and you have a solution. So what you ultimately have is a really good freelance business idea. And the best part about it is it's quick to solve. You can make a couple $100 doing it, and you can probably do several a day if you wanted to. So to put this in sort of context, right now in America, and probably a lot of other places, but I know in America, there's a big push right now for a $15 minimum wage. Politics aside, if you were making $15 an hour, you'd have to work 20 hours in a day to make $300. But here, you have a potential service where you could potentially make $300 in solving a problem in just a couple hours, let's say 2 hours. Well, that's as much as $150 an hour. Even if you only made $100 off of it and it took you 2 hours, which a lot of these things, 2 hours is a long time, you'd still be making $50 an hour. So you'd be much higher than this sort of wage that people are pushing really hard for. So just to sort of put that in context, and then you start to think of, well, how many of these could I do in a day? If it only takes me 2 hours, I could do 3 or 4 a day, and I'm making $200 off of them. I'm making $600 to $800 a day. So it starts to add up really, really quickly. And the really nice thing, you don't have all the pressure of managing and delivering on a weeks-long $5,000 project. It's just a couple hours. It's a couple $100. You already know how to solve it, but it adds up very, very quickly. So that's the start of this. Of course, in the next installment of this series, I'm going to show you how to build your services sales page. So how to actually build a page that's going to sell this service. And this is the place where people are going to go to hire you. And the big thing here is simplicity. So what I'm going to show you it's not going to take long for you to build. It's really, really quick, and it's not going to require a bunch of fancy sales tricks. In fact, the simpler, the more concise it is, the better, because of how we're going to position all of this stuff and the kind of traffic we're going to get to it and so forth. So if you want to take that next step and learn how to build that sales page to sell this new service that you've just identified, be sure to check out tomorrow's episode. All right, that'll do it for this episode. If you liked the episode, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. If you're on YouTube, make sure and hit the bell so that you ring the bell so that you get notified when the future installments of this series are uploaded. If you want to listen to the audio version of the podcast or get links to all the past episodes of the show, you can find all that at johnmorrisshow.com. And finally, if you'll rate and review the podcast over on iTunes, I will give you Module 1 of my PHP 101 course for free. All the details on that you can find at johnmorrisshow.com. Just click on the Start Here link at the top. All right, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.